Hello and welcome back to Shakesyear. We are finishing up with the Taming of the Shrew today, and we get to finish it off hearing from Katherine, it's a fun piece. It's a piece that I worked on in a class in college, so, throwbacks. And as I'm going back over it, I was like, oh yeah, that's what that was and all that sort of thing. So fun stuff there. But anyway, in Shakespeare's folio, this is Act 5. In other versions, it's Act 5, Scene 2. So we have to tell you what happened in Act 5, Scene 1 in some other versions. So the stuff that has been happening, Petruchio and Katherine are married. She has started just agreeing to the things that he says, in part to get him to shut up. Hortensio left to go marry a widow who we haven't really met or heard about or anything like that, but he left to go marry her. And Lucentio has learned that he can sort of sneak away with Bianca and get married because he, as Cambio, is the one that's supposed to bring Bianca to the church so she can marry Lucentio, who's Tranio is pretending to be, all that sort of thing. So all of that is happening, and they got a schoolmaster or a pedant to pretend to be Vincentio, being Lucentio's father, but then as Petruchio and Katherine and Hortensio were going to Baptista's place to see Bianca's wedding, they run into the actual Vincentio, and they're like, oh, we're all going to the same place, so let's go together. So that's what happened there. At the top of what other versions call Act 5, Scene 1, we have Lucentio and Bianca, and they're like, okay, let's go do this. Let's go now, and let's go get married. And they go off to do that while Katherine and Petruchio and Hortensio and I think Grumio enter with Vincentio, and they're now at Baptista's house. So they're like, hey, can we come in? And Vincentio's like, would you go get my son? And it happens to be the pedant who's pretending to be Vincentio, who's like, who's your son? And he's like, Lucentio. And he's like, no, Lucentio is my son. So who are you? Go away. And Vincentio starts getting really mad because obviously now somebody is pretending to be him, and that's not cool. So eventually everybody comes outside, and there's a confrontation, and Baptista is there, and there's back and forth, a lot of back and forth, and Biondello knows that this is the real Vincentio, but is keeping up the illusion that Tranio is actually the son. But then Vincentio gets mad that Tranio is dressed so well. He's like, why are you, a servant, dressed so well? You must have killed my son. So he gets really mad. So then they call for him to get arrested, and it turns into this great big crazy thing until Lucentio and Bianca show back up, and they're like, hey, we just went and got married. Huh? Sorry that we didn't ask for permission about that. And oh, by the way, hi, Dad. So now everybody knows who everybody is. Tranio is revealed as the servant that was just acting as like a placeholder. Lucentio is revealed as the real Lucentio. Vincentio is revealed as Lucentio's actual father, and everybody's like, okay, this is sort of fine. Baptista's a little pissed that Bianca got married without his permission, and Vincentio promises that he's going to get revenge on Tranio for fooling him, for spending all of his money, all of that sort of stuff, blah, 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 blah. And that's the end of that scene. So now we're in Act 5, Scene 2, or just Act 5, as it's known in the folio, and everybody is partying because there was just a wedding. Lucentio and Bianca just got married, so they've all got something to celebrate. And everybody's hanging out. Petruchio and Katherine are there. Lucentio and Bianca are there. Hortensio is there with his widow, who they got married at some point off stage. But everybody's, just sort of hanging out and talking. And eventually, Katherine, Bianca, and the widow go off into another room to chat by themselves, whereby their husbands stand around and start making bets who has the most obedient wife. And Petruchio's like, no, none of you do. I do. Let's put some money on it. And somebody's like, 20 crowns. And he's like, no, 20 times that much. And they're like, 100 crowns. And somebody fails to call them out on the fact that that's not how math works. But they bet 100 crowns that their wives will come back into the room when called for. So first they send for Bianca, and the message comes back that Bianca is busy and doesn't want to come. So Lucentio's like, crap. And then they send for the widow, and the message comes back that she's in a conversation and she'll chat with Hortensio later. So he's like, crap. And then they send for Katherine, and they're all like, she's not going to come. We already know her answer. But then Katherine comes in, and she's like, what can I do for you? And Petruchio's like, the other lady said they weren't going to come. What are they doing? She's like, they're chatting. He's like, bring them on in here. So Katherine leaves to go get the other ladies, and all the men are like, what? You're like, now I owe you 100 crowns. And Baptista puts down an additional 20,000 crowns, because he also doesn't understand math, but in the other direction, to give to Petruchio for having tamed Katherine and that sort of thing. So Katherine comes back in with the other ladies, and the other ladies are like, why is she like doing all of his bidding? This is a little bit crazy. And Petruchio's like, Katherine, take off your hat and step on it. And she does. And the other women are like, what is this? And Petruchio's like, Katherine, tell them how they should treat their husbands. And the other ladies are like, what is wrong with her? And Katherine says, fie. Fie, unknit that threatening unkind brow, and dart not scornful glances from those eyes, to wound thy lord, thy king, thy governor. It blots thy beauty as frosts do bite the meads, confounds thy fame as whirlwinds shake fair buds, and in no sense is meet or amiable. A woman moved is like a fountain troubled, muddy, ill-seeming, thick, bereft of beauty. And while it is so, none so dry or thirsty will deign to sip or touch one drop of it. Thy husband is thy lord, thy life, thy keeper, thy head, thy sovereign, one that cares for thee and for thy maintenance, commits his body to painful labor, both by sea and land, to watch the night and storms, the day and cold, while thou liest warm at home, safe and secure, and craves no other tribute at thy hands but love, fair looks, and true obedience. Too little payment for so great a debt. Such duty as the subject owes the prince, even such a woman oweth to her husband, and when she is froward, peevish, sullen, sour, and not obedient to his honest will, what is she but a foul contending rebel and graceless traitor to her loving lord? I am ashamed that women are so simple to offer war where they should kneel for peace, or seek for rule, supremacy, and sway when they are bound to serve, love, and obey. Why are our bodies soft and weak and smooth, unapt to toil and trouble in the world, but that our soft conditions and our hearts should well agree with our external parts? Come, come, you froward and unable worms. My mind hath been as big as one of yours, my heart as great, my reason haply more, to bandy word for word and frown for frown. But now I see our lances are but straws, our strength as weak, our weakness past compare, that seeming to be most, which we indeed least are. Then veil your stomachs, for it is no boot, and place your hands below your husband's foot, in token of which duty, if he please, my hand is ready. May it do him ease. So there's a lot in this speech, and depending on which way you want to take it, and has Katherine just been placating him for the sake of placating him? Does Katherine know about these bets that were being made? Is she just after the money, or has she actually been broken? These are all choices that can be made by the person playing Katherine that will send that speech in different directions. Because what she's saying, she's trying to shame the other women by saying that by being forward and thoughtful and speaking their minds and trying to be independent people, that they are incredibly unattractive to their husbands, and the husbands go and they work and they toil and they keep the women safe, and all that they ask is that the wives are obedient and all that sort of thing. So she's like, women are made soft, so we should be soft, and I know because I used to be loud and witty and all that sort of thing, but now I know that I owe my husband all of his stuff, so I'm going to kneel at his foot and do whatever it is that he wants. And everybody around takes this as a big show of he has actually broken her, and they're like, wow. And he's like, okay, Kate, let's go on home and let's get out of here. Oh, and at the end of Act 5, Scene 1, like, as everybody was going in other directions, everybody's left the stage except for Petruchio and Katherine, and he's like, give me a kiss. And she's like, ew, in the street? And he's like, yes. And she's like, okay, fine, whatever. So take her whatever direction you will. Everybody that's around in this scene takes it as she has been broken, and this is an amazing thing that Petruchio has done, and they're all just kind of stunned. Petruchio and Katherine leave, and then everybody's like, wow, I guess you tamed that shrew. And then the play is over. So also, in sort of wrapping all of this up, I know this is a long video and I apologize for that. In wrapping all of this up, the Taming of the Shrew and everything that we just saw, including Katherine's little performance at the end, is part of a play within the play. So it could also be argued that everything that happens between Bianca and Lucentio and Katherine and Petruchio and all of those relationships, it could be argued that they are heightened for the purpose of making a point, because they're a play within a play. Like, Petruchio isn't necessarily actually this horrible, horrible excuse for a man, and Katherine isn't necessarily broken, because it's a play within a play. And we never get to go back and check with the audience, with Christopher Sly and those people from the quote-unquote prologue, or from Act 1, Scene 1 and Act 1, Scene 2, depending on what version you're watching. We never get to check in with them to see what they think of the resolution of the play. So I think a lot of times when this is actually performed somewhere, the prologue is just taken off and it is presented as if these are actual people in these actual situations. But putting the layer on it of this is a play within a play, I think brings back into question the validity of a lot of the themes in it. And I know there's people that don't like the character of Katherine because she gives in, but does she really? I mean, it could be argued lots of different ways. She might be playing Petruchio now at this point and have a plot in mind to get revenge on him at some later point when he's not expecting it, So there's lots of things that could happen with this, and that's why to me it's kind of a fascinating play. It's kind of a weird play. It's a comedy full of gaslighting and traditional gender roles that are kind of gross, and the whole thought of winning a woman, which is antiquated, but whatever. So all of these things come together to create the Taming of the Shrew. And I would love to hear your thoughts on the play. Like, where do you think Katherine ends up at the end of this? Do you think that she's been tamed? Do you think she's playing along? Do you think that this was just something put on for the entertainment of Christopher Sly and all of the others? And what do you think happened to them? Did they enjoy it? Did he ever figure out that no, he's not actually a king, that he was a beggar that people are playing a trick on? Like, there's so many questions about this play. But anyway, that's the Taming of the Shrew. And tomorrow we get to start in on the Tempest, which is fun. I'm warning you, it starts out with a lot of exposition, so be prepared for that. But it is a fun play with a lot of context, and I've gotten to play Prospero, which was super fun. So anyway, I will see you tomorrow for new play day. Mwah.